Silver paper, you know.
So it's Jamaicans? England?
Yeah, there's a lot of Jamaicans in certain areas. I mean, not in England, in London, in one or two other big towns.
Not in the country.
In the country, you'll go for a month and never see a black man.
Right. The cities are quite international.
Same in America.
Yeah,
You see,
yeah, that's right.
England and America is responsible for the enslavement of the black race in this 20th century. And so when the Queen sent the Magna Carta over to Carter, we look at that as her acknowledging that she had failed and couldn't restore the rights of the black man, and telling America that it was America's duty to do so.
Good luck to them. They didn't seem to be doing too well.
That's why this is
They're trying to
They haven't
push
even
it off.
tried.
That's why this is such an important thing. That's why anything that can bring black and white together is of paramount importance this day and age, to mark to the white race and to the black race.
Yeah.
So you see, one of the teachings of our church is racial purity, in that every nation would be sovereign before God and pure, to eliminate the thing that started in the beginning when the Europeans came into Africa and raped Africa well, and caused this great world conflict that we see today.
God, all this conflict is there.
And so when the true church of God is the church of the people of the whole earth, not just one race,
Church of Racial
but it is a circle and a council of the rainbow, which is why you see black and white, and if you stay here long enough, you see Chinamen
Chinaman.
Churchill served as
Indian
a
too.
and Indian.
Yeah.
For there's only one God that made us all, and yet to live in that unity is something world religions have failed to show.
That's right. They preach division, not unity.
Yes, yes, I think it is.
Because
I
it
agree with you there.
calls for something to unite the people.
No racism, all people smoke out.
It's a communion, it's a true communion of our generation.
Yeah.
Foundation law.
And they passed a law against it, and you know that sometimes, for many of us as men, in and out of prison and different things, yet the Spirit, we know the Spirit is true.
Right.
I know that God made me, I've accepted that. I accept that God made the herb. And I experience a spiritual sensation and a spiritual communion.
Just going to ask you about that, Sue. Hang on a minute.
Are we ready?
Yeah. Do you want to spot on the end there?
You got wireless on?
Do you want to spot on the end there, Dave?
Huh?
Do you want to spot on the end there?
Yeah, it's not a bad spot.
A little bit of background. Okay.
Sorry.
No drone with it. Right. Okay.
No sound.
Sound is rolling.
Okay, camera roll A7, new roll. A15 mark.
Brother Love, if I could start with you, could you explain for us why it is that you smoke ganja or marijuana?
What we find in the first page of the Bible, in the Genesis book of 1, chapter, verse 29, it says, "Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon all the face of all the earth. To you it will be for meat." We partake of a herb that God made. God made me. God made the herb. I experience a spiritual communion with my brothers and sisters when we collectively partake of the same herb and offer thanks to that same God in the form of our prayers.
But you singled out ganja as having particular qualities, haven't you?
Right, well, history attests to that. We're not the first people doing this. Ganja has been accepted as a spiritual communion in Africa, Asia, China, the Caribbean, worldwide for thousands of years. And we partake of many different herbs, some for smoking, some for drinking. Many of the different herbs are noted for their medicinal qualities, and we have a wide range of herbs we partake of.
It has also, apart from that, some sacramental powers, is that right?
Yes.
You use it in your church your services.
Right, we partake as our sacramental offering of the body and the blood of Christ. Christ had a cup that he passed amongst his disciples. And he said, "Take ye and eat, for this is my body. And take of this cup and drink, for this is the blood, this is the covenant of the New Testament, which is shed for you." And we found the police and the whole world of politicians wanting to shed our blood over the same herb that God made. I'm convinced that Christ of the Bible is a ganja man and was persecuted for it.
The sweet smell of incense arising from these holy altars of incense.
You mentioned the police just now. I believe recently you've fallen foul, if not of the police, at least of the state prosecutors here. Could you tell us about that case, which we don't know about in England?
We just finished a case in the lower court, the circuit court in Dade County, Florida, where it was established and agreed to by the judge and by the state attorney that the Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church is a church, that we are sincere members of that church, and that marijuana, as they call it in America, ganja, which is the same herb, is our sacrament. Now they've said that having found all this, and we admitted that we pray here and that we smoke here, they said we were operating a church here. And because of that, we were in violation of the city zoning laws, and we had to stop praying here in any numbers larger than 2 or 3, and we had to stop any smoking or growing or possessing of the herb that God gave us.
What are you going to do about that in the future?
As far as our prayer and our praise, that will never stop. As far as the legal matters, of course, we're going to the higher courts, and we're going before the Dade County legislation tomorrow to introduce an amendment to the Florida drug laws, whereby the members of the Coptic Church will be exempt from prosecution by the state and county and city marijuana laws. And we expect this to have, it will be patterned after the same law that the Roman Catholics were granted, they were able to partake of their wine even during Prohibition, when wine was considered an illegal substance by all the different states. And the Catholics were given an exemption. There's a set of American Indians that call themselves the Native American Church, who use the substance known as peyote, which is a cactus. They've been given that sacramental privilege in 11 different states, even though it's against the state and federal laws. So we pattern our petition before the king based on the same standards, that we are a church, this is our sacrament. The laws were not made with the intention of persecuting a church. So they must understand now that their application of the marijuana laws concerning this church are quite unconstitutional.
Now, what is it that leads you to suppose that you, unlike other men, should be above the law?
The law that I know about is eternal. It cannot change. It's God's moral law. The main law concerning the herb is that you put a seed in the earth and you get a tree. Now, what you were referring to and calling it law were political devices, tax codes and municipal ordinances and what have you, that a handful of men set for their own gain at the expense of the people. It's political robbery and fraud. The politicians right now are fantastically wealthy through the ganja trade, through what they can rob and what they can thief from innocent, honest people.
It's been alleged that you too are fantastically rich now because of the ganja trade, isn't it?
I am rich because of the blessings of my father. Everything I have from my father, and everything we have is for the continuance of our gospel. We have no other activity aside from the gospel activity.
But where then do you get the money for your church?
As Jamaica is our head, as a tree has a trunk and it has branches, here at Star Island in Miami, we are a branch of the main church, which is in Jamaica.
So there's no truth in these rumors?
No, not whatsoever. We are not smugglers by any means.
Do you think, in this case, you're going to be bringing a test case of the whole question of the legality of smoking marijuana in the States, or in the state of Florida?
Right, it's come down to that. There was some sort of a zoning charge saying we were abusing the single-family dwelling original intention of this property, but that was dismissed. And the only issues now are that we smoke and that we congregate when we pray. Now, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution says that Congress will pass no law concerning any establishment of religion, or the free exercise thereof, or the freedom of the press, or the freedom of speech, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to have a redress to the government of their grievances. Our case will test that same First Amendment. We are not violating anybody else's rights. We're claiming our rights. We're not asking for permission to break any law because we do not acknowledge that the politicians, elected public officials, have any authority over the creation of God. They have no right to pass a law over and call marijuana or herb a controlled substance when they know they can't control it. Every man who was born on the planet Earth founded here, established already.
Universal law.
It's referred to in the scripture on the first page. In the book of the Psalms, in Psalms 104, the psalmist says, "He causeth the grass to come forth for the cattle, and herbs for the service of man." In the book of Revelation, which is a book of parables and a book of revelation, and you have to have a good understanding, you're pointing to a tree of life.
Book of mystery.
It's a book of mysteries that points you to a tree of life that grows in the midst of the paradise of God. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. And our generation in America, we were brought up to be soldiers and sailors and warriors. We all got toy guns and toy battleships for Christmas and our birthdays, and we had that mentality. And we started to partake of the herb. And we lost that mentality. So now we represent millions of young Americans. Many of us have been to college. We're the ones that have been trained to become the future leaders, to take over this gigantic military, political, religious, commercial government, form of government. We say no. Not only the Coptics, this whole generation says no. We are not going to support that. That's a departure from moral. It's a departure from law. It's political. And it cannot lead us, it cannot guide us, and it cannot unite us. So what you're seeing in America is the same thing you witnessed in Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. The land, America, will still be here. The power is gone. The young people do not support the system that the old people have asked us to inherit. It is corrupt. We say no. We have our youth, we have our wisdom and our knowledge. We're not going to bow down to that corrupt government. In the book of Daniel, when Nebuchadnezzar sets up his golden image and said everyone must bow down, Daniel and his brethren would not bow down.
No.
And in the book of Romans, God, the prophet says, God himself said that he had 7,000 men who would not bow their knee to the image of Baal. We as a generation do not bow to the corrupted political mess known as the United States government. We will not continue that.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's very good. Do you have anything left you want to take any cutaways?
I wish we had touched the one point
Yes, we
about
could-
our
we could
understanding of American law coming from British law, which comes from Bible law.
You see, all law is based on God's moral law.
Would you like to just say that now? Because
Are you rolling,
take a few
Spaghetti?
shots. Did you have that?
I have
You
them.
have that, all right.
Keep rolling.
And that in Queen Victoria's law, there was never any law against the herbs. The same herb known as ganja used to sell in the marketplace as tea bush. Until the politicians came in and passed their political, tax-oriented laws to persecute the people.
And to support the drug and chemical industry.
Anyhow, the herb were legalized in America, and the people had herb to smoke, you wouldn't see a drug problem in America. You wouldn't see people taking chemical LSDs and speeds and these different maddening drugs that they take, but they
You wouldn't
take
see
those.
so much disease.
And if it wasn't a crime, when a man went to get some herb, he wouldn't have to go amongst the people who also have heroin and LSD and speed, because it's
it wouldn't
considered
be
a
criminal.
crime and an underground substance. Anyhow, the distinction is made between the herb and chemical drugs. A man will know that he wants his herb, he goes to the marketplace. He wants his drugs, then he has to go see the criminals. But by making millions of people criminals, they've destroyed the credibility of the youth in the American system.
They don't believe them.
Very good.
We're not going to do that to our children.
You see,
And you're for peace,
Right.
and black and white together.
Right.
We had run out.
Yeah.
The rules of right.
Well, we've realized that. We
Yeah.
as a set of white
Yeah.
people have bowed to the wisdom of the black man, that he's maintained not through college, not through degrees and education. Some of the brothers, some of the brothers that are my teachers can't read and write.
Yeah.
Yet a spirit of revelation has touched them. The Queen knows that there are men in the kingdom who have been blessed with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And when it gets to a pressure where she goes to all of her governors and all of her counselors, her sheriffs and her judges,
Yeah.
and they can't reveal the mystery, the Queen is going to be there to tell the politicians, there is a man in the kingdom who's been blessed by the Holy gods.
Because the people still respect
And he's
him.
living amongst the children of captivity.
So?
He's living in, he was carried beyond.
She has to tell the story of how they carried the black men out of Africa.
Yeah.
You're touching on the thresholds of the connection between Ethiopia, Jamaica, and from Jamaica, the Western Hemisphere,
And the basis
how
of
the
all
kingdoms
law.
were built, and who built it, and whether or not justice requires that the white race go into slavery, or whether we can call a halt to that and unite for the rules of right.
And comprehend what
Unite
is
peacefully.
righteous.
But anyhow, they say history, they say it's like a pendulum, and what goes must come, and what, the
You're
black
right.
race was in slavery, so what happened? You know?
Right.
So we have to stop the
Go the other
madness.
way.
We have to stop the madness now.
Yeah.
And expose the deed that has already been done. You see,
already been
it's not, you can't undo what has
Expose them as
already been
criminals.
done, but you can become conscious of what has already been.
Yeah.
So would you be able to guide yourself rightly now?
That same kind of consciousness brought Richard Nixon down off his throne,
Yeah.
in his pomp and his pride.
Politicians didn't throw them out.
No,
When
it was
he
the
had gone
people
before and said,
exposing
I
them.
am the mightiest man in the world.
You see it
At
there?
one of their conventions.
Good.
Bring him down.
There was one man he wasn't mightier than.
I think we can remove ourselves and leave it in peace, because we've done it the other way around from what I'd expected, but it was
Carl?
very good.
Carl Telford.
You have a very nice voice.
Anytime we can
See, you don't like to
be your host again, or we
choose one above another.
we'd love to see people have a chance to visit us in Jamaica.
Well, I think it's very unlikely that I'll be able to come because of commitments and so on and so forth, but I will certainly mention it, because there is a possibility that
You make them
Once the Queen hears about this,
You make the people
you may be
of
sent
BBC
down
know.
by her private jet.
By
Make a
royal command.
request in the name of Brother Walter Wells, of the spiritual elder of the Zion Coptic Church, who listens to BBC every day for as long as I've known the man.
The
It's 8
news.
o'clock now, they're like,
Okay.
8 o'clock, right there.
Okay. I'll tell him.
So he has a record of the history
Yeah.
himself.
And when he hears on BBC, Coptics declare ganja to be solution to world chaos.
Who knows, it might be.
Yes, it should be.
Well, like,
God gave it to us for that purpose.
you know the understanding that what you see on a small scale is possible on a large scale?
Television people have a bad habit of leaving things around, so.
They do.
Many times
Yes,
the
some
microphone-
bits behind you, actually.
All
You
the
say
time.
that. I don't know whether-
These little things here, are these yours?
Yes, they look sort of vaguely familiar.
Those are,
No, those might be ours.
Oh, are
those are
they?
theirs. No, I don't
Oh,
use
they're
that
yours?
type of
Oh,
windscreen.
well, there you go.
We're getting rather professional, too.
I know. Notice.
Well, now when the police raid us, they know it becomes world news because we.
Worldwide.
That'd be good. That'd be very
We
good.
have films in them.
We do.
We have it all on
Well,
record.
like you have the, oh, that was on.
Are you gonna go back now? Are you gonna go back to England?
We're going back next week, yeah.
You gonna take some Coptic times over there?
This week. I have them all, I think. Well, all the ones that were given me the other day.
That's nice, man. We like them.
Thank you. I've read quite a lot of it. And read some of the brief histories.
The Coptic moral.
Coptic understanding.
Marcus Garvey traveled to England
Yes,
as well
Yes.
as to America.
yeah.
Made many speeches.
He made a speech in Albert's Hall.
Did he? Did he? When was that?
That was in 1927, 1923 or 24 or something like
Have
that.
you heard of what's called the Tiger Bay Club in Miami? It's a political club. They meet in
No, I know, but somebody mentioned it.
It's the heights of their society, political society. They invited me to talk there. First they called and said, "Would I come in 3 weeks?" And I said, "Okay." They called me and I said, "Listen, we'll change our schedule." But it's Wednesday at 12 o'clock at the Beaufort Plaza.
Really?
And the whole world of American justice.
The Queen was in the
We had meetings with
Is this a documentary?
organization felt
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna be,
We have a lot of
when's this gonna come out, you know?
When? I really don't because they schedule, you know, a date, but it's always, you know, 6 months to a year late. Yeah. Oh, he will. I'm sure he'll stay in touch.
I know where it is.
Do you have videotapes in England?
Of what?
Videotapes
Of what?
of anything? Can you,
We have copied some of the tape that one of the local channels put out, but I don't particularly want to use that stuff. I don't necessarily agree with what they say.
no, like, we have videotapes, we have a large collection of
Now,
videotapes.
we can't do anything with your tapes, we've already been through this on
Right.
yesterday or the day before on Friday.
And
It's
you know,
a technical problem.
You know, we found out about our tapes too. The TV cameraman was telling us that he takes his film, they take it back and they make a copy of that to splice and they make another copy. So what you see on television is about third generation.
Yeah, they
And
have,
then you copy it and then you make a
It
copy.
doesn't suffer that much on tape, not as much as it does on film, actually.
Yeah.
But it's not good for it.
So what did you find out about the law system in America?
Oh, some good things, some bad things.
No legal system can work without respect.
I don't think there's a lot of respect
For the law.
for some of the law.
So
I
Churchill?
think
That's why the ganja is the
there's a
biggest
certain amount
issue.
of respect amongst the people who stand to gain by it.
What do you need,
for
Churchill?
a good cause.
Whose jobs are law
You see it?
enforcement?
It's just as the prophecy says, they accuse and excuse one another for their convenience.
No, here.
She's supposed to be with BBC.
Were you expecting someone
Yeah,
then?
we have a gal bringing up
Okay.
cable here too.
Part of the disrespect you have for the law is the fact that they have laws like against the ganja, which the people are realizing are a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah,
And as they realize that, they're saying, well, if that's wrong, well, then all the laws are wrong.
yeah.
So that's where they're losing a lot of respect. And a
I don't
breakdown
know
in
if they're
America.
necessarily saying that all the laws are wrong, but I think they're
Well, I mean, you know what I
No,
mean.
here's what they're saying.
It
They're saying the same thing when the Papa was sitting there smoking a cigarette and said, son, don't smoke cigarettes. American people look at the American government, they're so corrupt, every day they catch a new one in a scandal.
Really?
A sex scandal, a sodomy scandal,
Payoff.
a murder scandal, the CIA killed Kennedy. Do
Yeah.
you understand?
Yeah.
So how can they respect, have any
That
regard
government.
for that government?
And
The
we
mayor of-
ourselves-
Everybody knows if you get in any trouble in America, you have to pay the judge.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
The mayor of
So how can you
Homestead
have any
just got
respect because you know there's no justice and there's no law?
The poor man goes to jail.
The poor people have
So
no,
is it this law we're to obey or God's law? Which law are we to obey? Are we to end up like Rome? Are we to end up like Persia? Are we to end up like Egypt? No, we're not going to.
And look what's happening in England today. England once said the sun never sets on the British Empire because they ruled every continent all over the world and the kings were mighty. They were actual world leaders. And now you look at what power England's got, and England hasn't got no power anymore. They can barely feed their people. You know what I mean? They're having trouble keeping everything working and everything. And their colonies have all rebelled against them and fought against them and turned against them. And that was because of inward corruption in the
You see in every political empire.
Mike, did you bring the picture?
people siphoning off the money and stealing from the people rather than increasing the people and everybody increasing.
Stealing from the poor.
You see, back in 1776, when America broke from England, there was a reason for that.
You see it there?
And that reason was spotlighted by the Boston Tea Party,
Yeah.
which is concerning hemp. That was imported hemp,
Not Lipton tea.
not Lipton tea. Because it was over something that was imported that was grown. So the ganja has a connection in history between America
The early,
and England.
the early colonies, all the colonists, 60% of all the clothing was made from hemp. There were certain states that had laws.
made
If
the
you had
money
a certain
from
size piece of land, you had to plant so many acres in hemp.
It was mandatory
It was mandatory.
cultivation.
You go to jail if you did it.
The word,
George Washington himself said, I planted a bushel and a half of ganja seeds today.
That's acres.
In his diary.
A bushel and a half. You're talking about a lot of
The word,
You're not talking about backyard garden.
the word cannabis, the word cannabis.
A butch.
A bushel and a half.
That's billions.
So how did something that was
Taken directly out of George Washington's diaries.
oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I saw that.
The English hemp, i.e. the hemp from the English seed, was picked at Muddy Waters Day and was right. That
Okay, now listen.
bring her seeds from England to America.
England got the seeds from Africa
India,
and
Now, there's
India.
another point down here, it says, began to separate the male from the female.
You understand?
That's, you know what, that produces the female hemp with no seeds, what is called the seedless or sensitive, most prized for smoking, not for rope making. When they do it that way, that's to develop a certain kind.
that's for personal use.
George had the best rope and the best smoke in town.
Wait, maybe my wife now.
Remember what he said when he left his speech? He said, let me tell you this, don't involve this country in political parties. It'll be the downfall.
The spirit of the party.
The party spirit. You'll lose everything. You'll lose your morals. Everything will corrupt out to
Says
nothing.
thereby you will lose
200
your...
years later, what do you see? No respect.
What do you see?
Every American family. There's 5 in a family, 3 hate 2, 2 hate 3. Father don't ground with mother, daughter don't
They
ground
call
with
it
pop.
generation gap.
Over half to end up
You
in
understand?
divorce.
You lose your
Divorce
union.
is rampant. Adultery is, and fornication is right in the streets.
Every television program is about adultery or
Just
the,
pick up the newspaper in America.
Don't they have parties in England?
Yeah.
You see, it destroys the union of the nation.
It's much, well,
God is not divided.
by democracy, it gives
Whatever happened to Jeremy
people
Thorpe over
the-
there?
But what happened to God's law, which never changes? You see? See, their laws change.
People differ on
Their laws
their
change.
interpretation of God's law.
Jeremy Thorpe is
How
a
can you
perfect
interpret thou
example of why
shalt
the people
not
don't
commit
respect the
adultery?
law
Thou shalt
in
not
England or in
murder.
America.
Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's possessions. How can you interpret that? How can you interpret that any other way?
What amendment, what
You
amendment
can't
do you have to
interpret
add to
God's
that?
law, but how
Almost all countries will
Plain, it's
have
plain.
laws against that.
Every man would know that would be true in himself. I mean, even if you couldn't talk to a man, you couldn't speak with him your language, you would know enough not to
To
do
know
that.
that you,
not to do these certain things.
yeah, right.
Because you wouldn't want a man to do those things to you.
So that is the foundation of law, is a moral law that's written inside of your heart.
It's the foundation, but it isn't necessarily, as you've found, all of it, is it? I mean,
No, like throughout the years, the truth has never been popular with the political powers to be.
They've
so
always
I don't
tried.
think, I'm not sure that it's the political powers to be. I think the law happens to be on the Constitution or the statute book or wherever it happens to be. Yeah.
But now, yeah, see, now I want to make sure when we talk about law, now, I don't know how much you've studied about American law, but I'll tell you, beloved man, when the brother said buy off the judge, plea bargain, go get a lawyer and put a big bundle of money on the table and forget you were ever charged with anything, and the lawyer works out everything, you never go to court.
Law is big business in America.
Yeah.
Big business.
I've heard it.
What?
Oh, yeah, I hope you've seen it.
I've
There is-
seen the
there
plea
is one.
bargaining. We filmed the plea bargaining.
There's not a...
Have you plead a man with a
not
gotcha
a
case
judge
going to
that
a
will
very
think about
incompetent lawyer who didn't have 3 cases and was borrowing money to pay his rent the year before, and got $25,000 of it? They made a big business out of it, man.
I was in jail. I was in a jail that was about 90% black men in New Jersey, in the metropolitan Northeast United States. There was one man who told me he was charged with murder. Right? They were making him plea bargain to this murder charge to clear the books because that murderer had been killed in a robbery. He told me all these things because he knew the street, what was going on in the street. He said, "I didn't do it. They're trying to put it on me." What he had done was 7 armed robberies, and they had 3 other young people on the other side of the jail, young black men, that they were charging for those robberies to clear those off the books.
Right, so it makes it look like they're doing the
And
right
it just
That's
goes
right,
around and around like
right
that.
around.
You just pray to stay out of that system.
But you fill
They all get out together.
90 seconds.
They had a black man who'd been in jail there for 18 months, and more than half of it in solitary confinement. And that's because he couldn't afford a lawyer. He couldn't afford bail.
Yeah.
Were you in the prisons?
Yes.
So you saw almost pure black.
We've been in Drake County Jail and we've been in Rayford.
Have you seen how out of proportion the prison population is, black and white, how much more black and white prison than...
Talk to them about it.
What do they say about it? What do the prisoners say about it?
They say what you were just saying, that there's one law for the rich and one for the poor.
There is.
Exactly right. That is America.
And here's what happened.
It's the same law, but it doesn't work the same.
No, now, my friend, this is the significance of the ganja now. Because it used to be one law for the white and one law for the black.
Yeah.
But now that same law, they start the law they had against the black man, because for a long time, only the black people knew about their herbs.
rich against the
When we started to smoke in the 60s, it came like a shock went across America. Not that people smoked ganja, but the white people smoked ganja. So the same police who were used to busting the black man, the first black people I ever met and sat down with and talked with, because my whole life before I'd only met them through athletics. The first time I actually sat down, I got to know a black man and know a little bit about his family and his likes and his dislikes, was when I was in jail for marijuana. And millions of us realized what a fellowship we have with the black people once we felt the oppression of this great big beast called the American legal system come down upon us. And the same, now they have to say, it is for the rich and one for the poor. They can't say black and white anymore because of the ganja.
Yeah.
So now if you're a poor man and you're caught with ganja, whether you're black or white, you stay in jail. You suffer. If you're a rich man and you're caught with ganja, whether you're black or white, you come out.
That's what plagues them even more
So
than
it's gone from a
smoking.
racial law through the influence of the
Yes,
ganja.
They can't stand to see
To an
black and white
economic
man
law.
come together.
Guns changed everything in America. How do you think America stopped fighting in Vietnam?
Yes.
Listen, they say that there's 12
They
tons.
smoked and put down. Yeah.
See it there?
We're not gonna go to war.
They weren't going to go to war.
Every day that they know about.
They weren't. The ones they had there
That's where I
wanted
learned
to
about
leave,
war and guns.
and they sure weren't going to get any more.
Vietnam.
They started
Some of
smoking.
these brothers here
So
were
they
from
couldn't keep
Vietnam.
fighting. They had to stop the war because of what? A little ganja plant.
See, they took all the youth from America over to the jungles, like this brother here was a squad leader in Vietnam. Where did you find out about ganja?
Vietnam.
I mean, they,
Another brother was on a Navy ship over on the Gulf of Tonkin, and he started smoking, and said, what am I doing here?
I thought everything in
Because
America
the herb
was
has a revelation,
it carries a spirit.
and a spirit, a fellowship, a gathering
Spirit of love.
an ancient spirit that for ancient man partook of the same herb.
Of the same community.
So it draws us back, and the ancient man were much more moral. They had much more of a connection with God and with the spiritual world.
Connects us
Not
with
with the
our,
military, political, economic rat race, must get an education or you'll never get a good job. You can't develop as a sincere spiritual person if you're so wrapped up in the physical.
connects us with our ancient negativity. Ancient dynasty.
And it contains a spirit that gives you a certain knowledge about your own self. You see, experience teaches something. And so when you partake of the herbs, you obtain wisdom. And so the people who have smoked say many different things about the herb than the people who haven't smoked.
Right. And the ones who are administering the law are basically non-smokers or smokers and won't let you.
Or smokers whose jobs depend upon persecuting the herb.
That's the DEA.
Saying-
You see all the narcotic
Yeah,
agents?
yeah.
You think they wanna lose their job? They don't do a fucking thing.
They smoke
They
them.
get free
One thing-
expenses, they get as much herb as they want, they get as much barbiturates and heroin and cocaine as they want, they get a free car, they get a free house. You think they wanna lose their job?
In America, this much cocaine
Plus, they get to rob you when they come to your door.
is about 1,000 pounds of ganja. So that means that if you were doing something for the economics, you would certainly put something like this in your pocket, and you wouldn't go to the trouble of looking at what 1,000 pounds of herb look like.
Fill the room.
So the economic people, the mafia people, the big people,
They're into
are into
that.
the crazy powders.
Yeah, sure.
There's independent, honest young people saying, man, I know what I'm gonna do. I don't want that 9 to 5, but I don't wanna be a robber knight. I don't wanna be a thief or a crook. And I don't wanna bow to that, have to have a job, have to do this, have to do that. I see something where my conscience is free. I'm not robbing anybody. I'm causing 1 million people to have a blessing. And nobody lost anything. Everybody's happy, everybody's
Man lives on earth.
Nobody says they lost anything.
Yes.
You have to have herbs to live.
People, you'll have to call it a
Smoking gives you a
counterculture
conscious way.
that has developed.
It's a whole civilization.
Women sit by themselves. It's according to an ancient tradition.
According to Bible law.
It's a Bible tradition, and it's African.
But you're talking about a lot of the consciousness changing in America regarding, young people and youth.
We don't
Part of
deal,
that is also-
we don't deal with society, we don't
We say
deal
that's all
with
wrong.
custom, we don't deal
We
with
say that is
fashion.
inverted.
We don't
Woman
worship
has a
moral
place.
breakdown in America.
God made woman for a purpose. It is under man.
You ever see,
God
you
doesn't
ever,
love
you
woman
ever know an
any less,
American
but
woman?
It's different.
Right. Woman has her own factors that she smokes.
Right.
We don't smoke
The
together.
greatest work of a woman is to bring forth a child. That's when they reach the highest.
That's the master.
That God created them for.
It is, it's in opposition to the whole doctrine of the world.
I mean, you're talking a lot of really aware consciousness and a lot of other things. It sounds really good, it really does.
Everyone,
But I teach the same things you teach and say. But along with that, it seems to also go the greater consciousness of what a woman can create other than just babies.
Oh, if you.
No, you don't, you're
All the
you're looking at it too
responsibilities.
narrow-minded.
Wait, that's not the only one, by that I mean motherhood, tied to the home, the supporter of man,
God made man and
the
woman
helpmate of man.
together.
It's
Man
one
can't do
spirit
everything.
in man and woman.
You see, there's no greater work than to raise a child.
Yeah, but you see, my consciousness was regarding what you're saying was taught to me by a woman who sat in a circle much like you're
So
saying.
that's what I'm showing you, that a woman is to teach the children.
That's her
And
job.
yet the man has a certain role and a certain status that he has to administrate amongst other men.
However, you must
Do you read the
realize-
scriptures? The Bible?
Scriptures.
You read Corinthians book where it said that as Christ is the head of man, so is man the head of woman. It's a natural revelation.
All things in order in
that we
their
found
proper
within,
place.
within the scripture. That as Christ is to be the head of every man, that every man should have his Godhead. That man, in all creation you see the same manifestation. The lion, the fish, the bird, in every instance you see the male having his male responsibility. You see the woman having her family raising responsibility, and there you see harmony. Man has tried to tamper with that and
Change
bring
it out of
down
course.
man, elevate woman, yet the scripture says that they would bake their cakes and give their praises to the Queen of Heaven. And by following that principle, by neglecting the requirement of a man to be a man, the world's out of course. Women are now become not only the queens, but in America they become mayors and governors and senators and judges and lawyers.
God
and
made
way up
women
on
to be a helpmate.
And the more that goes on, there's also a greater and greater emphasis on homosexuality and on a moral decay, to where if you follow the trend much longer, you'll see the women going out to work and the men staying at home. The culture of male domestics.
You're
now.
liable to see men teaching children.
Well, like, you know, we only see that for a very time, because we're telling you that what you see is going in the wrong direction fast. Not just in one area or two areas, but the basic concept of the world today of who man is, who God is, why God made man. Once those questions are answered, since woman came from man, everyone will naturally understand why God also made woman.
You see, men and women are not divided.
They're in what way?
They're not divided.
No, but what I'm saying is you have them divided here.
No.
It just appears that
Well, they're in the same.
You see, if
Things
you
aren't, things aren't as they appear.
way. Well, no, that's true, but what I'm saying is, yes, but I mean, you see a woman sitting between every male, which to me seem more like the balance that nature seems to.
They partake of the same doctrine, it's just there's priorities.
And they'll borrow almost a hundred of
Love with harmony among people, there was that.
them. Brother,
Brother, now when you read about the Christ and the apostles, and they go into their chamber, and they go into the upper room, and they go into the Mount of Transfiguration, you don't hear a woman there.
Never will.
You never hear that. It's the doctrine of God is that God is man. Man is made in the image and likeness of God.
God is a man.
God made woman to be with man, so that man and woman together would become, the two flesh would become one flesh. So we're not saying woman is lower than man, yet woman is in a different
Has a proper place.
I agree, but you're saying that she should not speak something of this nature.
Not in the church, but outside of the church, she
Not
reasons
during the
and
time of
teaches.
council.
Amongst the sisters.
Woman should get her understanding from man, as men talk all through the day, yet when we gather as a congregation, we're here to talk about
But
man's
basically
affairs.
what you're saying is that they have no understanding on their own other than through the men.
That's right.
oh,
That's
that
right.
wisdom.
Right, starting with their father.
So you're basically saying in a way they are inferior.
No, every woman has
You are.
No, where does man get his wisdom?
I mean, my name is man, but we're talking about man-child being with
No, when you
the
say that a
mother.
woman has to get
I
her wisdom
agree.
from a
I agree,
man,
but you see,
that's not
the
unreasonable.
picture you are presenting would to the outside seem very, very sexist. And I'm saying,
Right, they'd
for
say,
those who would want to believe and listen to a good deal of what you say, I would think that a woman speaking to other women of the same nature would be very important.
They do that.
If you wanted to interview one of the sisters, you would find that they are brilliant. They
But
can-
I think you should have almost made that a requirement, because this is going to go over there, where they're going to look upon this and agree with a lot, but because of its conspicuous absence of women. But I think a good
I don't know,
component
but
would be,
perhaps that might be totally, but in Africa, India, Asia, China.
They wanna see the queen.
When they see that tradition, they'll recognize it as a very ancient tradition. This is how it was in the
see,
beginning.
you'd had to interview the sisters if you want to know about the sisters.
Are there any women in the House of Lords? This is I'm just curious, are there any women in the House of Lords?
Yes. Oh, yes.
That's relatively new.
I didn't know
what
that.
I'm saying is in the power structures of football today, I think you are hindering your conveying your message effectively, because you don't.
We don't,
We're not gonna tailor our message just to make it effective.
Then you are asking for prosecution.
Thank you for your help.
It's just the truth.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Please stay in touch, especially concerning the Jamaican part. We'd love you to be our guest anytime.
remember Tiger Basin,
Good.
Wednesday.
Remember, you just saw us commit a
What
crime.
I do, but,
You just saw us commit several
thank you very
crimes.
much. Thank you, everybody.
Karen's with, there used to be no women in the House of Lords.
Yeah. He's then get angry He looked like a woman.
Ask the sister,
If I told
the
her,
men on the camera, and ask the
Right.
sister if they resent this impression. Make them just burn them. Sister Jackie burn 'em.
Too packed up with sodomy.
They don't have a king, you know what I mean?
Left the daughter of the poorest. That's England, the mother of the harlot.
They're resting on Prince Charles Harding.
It's the queen that has to elevate.
You don't see they say, 'cause they can take everything except for one thing.
Turn off that.
Or do they think a man's inferior to a woman because he can't have a baby?
I didn't hear that one.
Well, they think a woman's inferior to a man because she can't talk in the congregation. They must think a man's inferior to a woman because he can't have a baby.
They don't know how you have a proper place and everything.
They don't
Right.
understand that.
They're far
Right
from
order.
civilization.
It's gone out, of course. It's just like if a
Them
man,
already sell out them man.
you see it there.
He wants
Too
to
lost.
They have to follow
Them
the-
compare just as all them compare to them one.
You see, he wants to liken the Jesus church where they got man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, you know? That's how it is up in the Jesus
Right,
church.
nobody watching the children.
Everybody's
having
watching the
sex
That's
puss.
because there's no communion with
You
them.
see it there.
Right.
You look from the psalm book to the puss.
Really.
It's just lust.
Yeah.
Big joke.
Being shown.
Pussy sucking.
She looked like a woman.
That
too.
was the trouble, pussy sucking, that
He looked
case
like a
right there.
woman.
You see the bad case of
Definitely.
pussy
What
sucking.
did Fatso ever say?
Just ranting.
Yeah, he was over there. Was he
Was he
ranting?
ran?
The other day, he blew his bugle there. Chan had just got done, you know, we were real low, you know. He went out there and just blew a big blast on his bugle. He ran out and fired up this hot boat down there and started.
Man, he's gonna have a heart attack if he gets it.
He's gone totally mad over the.
Yeah,
He
man.
confine himself to that, he'll be all right.
Totally mad.
What is it?
The two chants just rocked it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
If I was gonna go for another one, I didn't know how long they were gonna go. Here we are in this land.
Yeah, I knew that was it.
Just to take the-
I knew that was Luke to us.
Oh, that would have been a lick to them like they never felt.
Queen of Heaven's gonna get a lick back in England.
Well, it'll be nice.
They're gonna talk about
Yeah,
all the women are separate from the men.
It was excellent.
Yeah, really excellent.
We'll have to see this.
It says all our doctrine is good except for that one part. They all come from the same source.
That.
He said he grounded with all our whole doctrine except for the one part about the women. He said everything that we say come from the same source. He said, yeah, it says everything we said was all enlightened and up to the minute, except for that.
The Bible reading.
And it all come from the same light.
What they wanna do is give the woman the right to suck pussy.
She's not accepting that. And that's trying to be.
You can't give that a right. That's no right, it's a wrong.
I'd be magnified.
You know that argument that he gave. That's a woman's argument.
Right.
Oh, exactly.
Here's a man standing giving you a woman's argument.
One contrary voice in the whole.
You know,
all
but
come from pussy.
For I've heard that argument come from women many a times. That same argument. How come you don't pass the pipe to woman?
Yeah.
Or woman actually
Oh,
the
you're
pipe
so
don't
much-
come to
Let me
them,
show
you
you
know?
something. The
I know
understanding.
who I'm living that.
Usually,
This is our mind color now.
nobody
Yes.
comes.
Same reason we don't pass women from it around.
In the early days, night up in America, all the while when we, true, a lot of brothers knew a lot of hippie chicks, they would come over and that was one of the big things, they wanted to smoke the pipe.
Right,
They would grab the pipe sometimes.
Some real raunchy fucking.
right.
Better push that.
When there's a separation.
Pass up a pipe between a whole room of man and
What's
woman.
the problem? They don't have their own pipe.
But you see, moral security is something that they don't deal with in the world. And so they can't possibly understand what it is. Know that you're right.
Love man.
They have love.
Yeah, that's not it.
I mean, when the man who knows he's right is different from the man who doesn't know.
You know I'm different, but
You see it
Right.
quite so.
It's the greatest thing.
That's why they have to take and point people up in the sky for God and tell people that God is up in
and
the
I
sky
believe that.
and lead them to a post.
I believe that.
Right, they were believing.
Right. Because anyhow, man knew who he was.
Choosing to
No,
accept
right.
it. don't.
And then my church book, I didn't say I was like
You see it.
Well, the man who's right, his works are a manifestation of his good thoughts and his good deeds.
May not be seen. The guy will not be known.
As a man so.
So will he be. And so,
That's it. It's that fruit, I'm free that. The fruit that I live in.
right, the ism they've been laboring under.
And that's the sadness cover my morning, man.
Right.
Yeah, this is my clear meditation now.
The prophet rise up now.
I'm at the people have a free spirit and a free mind.
I'll make the people know. Right.
This come to me, move to me go out, everything, my mind.
Break down the idol
For the troubled waters.
of selfish pride.
So the world catches it in the right around.
Yeah.
So the love Jack Knight in around.
Yes,
The world is so great.
First of all, they have to be brought into submission.
Yeah.
It's just not right.
Confession is unto repentance. Repentance is unto salvation.
I'm not about the God life, if I believe it.
Well, you see, like, they wanna stipulate, now I wanna stipulate God's law.
This thing is bad. But it's not man, this thing, I mean that.
He set him as godly apart for himself.
You see,
Peculiar people.
there's a godly people.
A godly heritage and portion.
That's why I mean that, it's inheritance, I want to know about.
Really, man.
Why these fuckers that come and kill them and the inheritance of these pharaohs.
They always build
Where's the
some
God, they put it in a treasure.
Right.
place they can't be.
That's the good night, man. None of my pharaohs.
Most good thing for
That's why I'm so that class, yeah.
hard for a few.
So we give this life, that would be it.
And that's what they don't wanna do.
Process as much as they want to.
To give this life, you have to accept a man.
Salvation is
As a
a
man back,
A holy man,
a man covenant.
a man's glory. A man's heart.
Man bless man.
And so what they would measure about is inferior
That's it.
to man.
Right, their standard of judgment.
If you wanna look outside of man.
Since they don't know my divine status,
Right.
They look for themselves.
Teach them.
they're forever never seeing salvation.
That's why at school, like, they taught me at school that man was an animal. They said that all these things like murder and violence and bloodshed, these are all characteristics of man because man's an animal.
I'll tell you where that comes from.
become like beasts.
Because they used to say that the black man was one step closer to the gorilla.
Right, yeah.
You know,
That-
through
that
the
supports the
theory
whole
of
evolution
evolution.
theory.
They use it to justify themselves.
Say that man came from ape.
Right. To justify everything they do to man, treat him like
Beast-like
beasts.
behavior.
Yeah.
But remember
They
this
run a
one.
black man with a whip like a
Man,
beast, bro.
man was wicked and evil and sinful. And then he said he came from the beast.
Right.
Right. That's right.
But at the same time, they came up with the theory of evolution. At the
He
same
didn't come
time,
up with it.
slavery was going on then, you know?
Right, the justification for
Right, they
slavery.
needed a justification because they looked through the Bible, right, and look for some
But
justification.
them can't find none now. To justify that we can.
Right.
And their
They've been
prejudice,
That's
exposed.
it.
their
And
racial.
God revealed that. And the people know that fact.
The deeds revealed.
That's it.
There's a hand that's writing now.
For the generation of man. That's what I mean.
The wisdom put forth.
They would see it though.
The whole conflict is between those who are partake and those who haven't.
Yeah, generation.
There's a generation, so
That's why they don't care what their generation says.
they're not going to say anything until that day when they say nothing.
You see, to come into the name of the Lord.
So,
Yeah, look, look, look.
Yeah.
See it there.
That's corrupt political justice.
Nah, don't tell the truth.
their foundation is a lie. And vast.
Everybody accepts the lie.
Everybody has accepted the lie.
And even this, well, they come down here and see, man, we should have played 7-5 against this one contract.
Right?
Yeah, man.
If I accept the truth, and if you don't know the truth, you have to come back and pick up your lie.
See that? And that lie is the foundation of the beast. And so
And that's it called lie.
when that lie
The moral
is exposed,
And get the life from the dragon.
the people's morals will be awakened to understand it. And the simple truth of
I
the
can
word.
call lie.
See what it is to be free. It's not a job.
They have the most problems transmitting the most simple thing, you know? Come like it's impossible for them to show the shot of the sisters or something.
Right, because they still want to suck pussy.
Right.
There's less,
Don't have the revelation.
you see now, like, the
Simplest thing
reason
is
the
too
white man
complicated for
is
us.
prejudiced today is because he raped the black woman.
Right.
That's why he can't look the black man in the eye and respect him
That's it.
and say, "Listen,
I know that cost.
and even today, the same practice is maintained down on Biscayne Boulevard. Because when you check the horse, it's still black race.
Right, right.
Just driving from here to the corner.
So that is the first fucking thing that has to stop.
That's right. You go to some city, every street corner,
The
has a black
whoredom
woman.
The whoredom amongst the people corrupts the people, defiles the people,
Right.
ruins the generation. All the young gals are out there whored out.
Selling
All the
their
young
bodies
black
for
gals
money.
By
are
the time they're
repeating,
13, man.
are repeating the ritual that was performed in Africa.
Yeah, man, yes, sir. Good. They're raping off the black women.
And so all they rascal go on with. You think it's money? When they came to Africa, they saw a kingdom that was more vast and wealthy than anything they'd imagined.
The love of money is the root of all.
1/10 of that wealth enriched the whole Western Hemisphere.
And the Englishman knows that, you know.
Listen, there's a place in England now called the British Museum, and it's like about,
Let's see, not Jamaica, that's just in Britain, all the right time.
yeah, they thieved them. They thieved the black men.
I know that.
Yeah, man.
Let me tell you something, on the news yesterday, they showed about the gold, the mining of gold in Africa, and they said that the average black man, he'll be down the gold mines, he'll get paid 2 miles in the earth, get paid $200 a month, and it says that, they say that for every so many amount of tons of stone, they get 1 ounce of gold.
For every 600 pounds of stone out they get this much
6,000
gold.
pounds.
Like at the tip of your finger there.
That's what they have black men
And it
do?
showed black men down there
They
shooting
go
that stuff out
2
with
miles down in the earth in
Okay.
3 foot space.
1/7
You see the Panama Canal Zone? 4 generations of black men built that.
I know that.
You wanna know how many years? It didn't take four generations to do it, you know. The average life expectancy in building the canal was 57 days. 57 days.
Yeah, disease was drowning.
Those generations. Why did they let the black man breed and populate so there would be more to send into the canal zone? It was pure death there, man. You don't look in America? Check it out, man. It's a pure death camp for the black man. There's no exit.
No, there's no release.
No hope.
Like, yeah.
You see, without this, they
You
can't
see,
comprehend
we
themselves.
put them plan in a theory now. When they carry on the west side. They carry it in 10 times, so you'll never go back up to again.
Right.
You will never reach back your homeland.
Right.
Never have your rights.
And that's not take care of that.
Yeah.
And that cause the conflict now.
Right.
Yeah.
The white man came in with the Bible
Right, and take care of
and
that.
taught the black man to pray with his eyes closed.
And then keep everything.
When he opened up his eyes, he had the Bible, and the white man had the land.
Trick.
And then the council man followed, and then the army followed.
And then the Pope cut it up and divided it
Right.
and portioned it out to certain slave master nations.
Right, the beast gave the power to the dragon.
And so, you see, the Pope is responsible within the slavery because it was him that got the kickback.
Right, right. Isn't the Pope the only one conscious enough to know that you have to wait for man to sin before you can attack him?
Britain and Spain fought
Conscious evil.
for many years
The Pope
over
started it, man.
over the piece of paper that granted the nation the right to take the slaves out of Africa.
I remember
And that was from the
when the
time.
Queen did
You
that
should
down,
check the old laws
freedom, but it's
that
still.
cause man.
The same politician and the conspire. I said, not go
Crown Colony laws.
This is a law. It's
Until
older than
the letter.
yours.
I had to
One
let
of the laws against ganja. You must plant ganja.
Oh, I got a beauty man.
I'm forcing people to work.
Well, now, anytime you touch down, it's very bright lights, you know. And when they hear us ahead of the Coptic Church, they
didn't want to study law, those people. They said they were studying law. They didn't want to study law. What was King James thinking of law when he ruled 120 provinces? What was he thinking of law when he had them all come
We're not gonna
together
have
and
a
write the
spe-
King
we'll
James
start
Version of
them
the
out.
Bible? I want to look at the Bible. I want to study corruption law.
If them exist a land and still want to study the law, they don't know that.
No.
Chicken and cracking up.
Base of the law
Yeah,
is
this is
God's
like
law.
notes
Don't even know
for,
their own law.
This is gonna
So
go.
what
up,
has been a
and
shit.
it's also notes for the, Bullshit Bay.
Tiger Bear.
Yeah.
Hold the tiger.
They like to dictate.
Gentlemen, you have a tiger by the tail.
Only
Said the
Coptic.
Coptic one.
You have to give him that quote from Marcus Garvey, Brother Love.
Even Jimmy Carter can't say that.
No, they can't touch it.
No, we're going to a
Talking about
place,
things that are getting
we're
better.
going to a
than they
place
can.
on Wednesday where
Happy
all these little fuckers that were fighting against us, they don't even get to go there.
Smoke herbs.
All the ones higher than them go to this place. A little fucker like Hank Adorno and these little blood clots like
They
the
can't go there.
like the one burger. They don't get to go to these places. Only their boss can go.
They go to Burger King.
So they're gonna get a
You see
Rastamans
it.
there now with all their pussy class friends.
The
Arthur Burger King.
president spoke
Your
there.
ass, Clyde.
It's where Carter, last time Carter came to Miami, that's where he works, where he
You
did.
see what you have to tell them with Tiger Bay, Tommy, is expose the source of the lie. You know what I mean? Because in colonial America, they considered ganja good and a foundation. And then in 37, they said that they called it good bad.
The bad good.
Bad good. 40 years later, after a fucking history of cancer and the same drugs they said were good, they say cause cancer.
Well, didn't they repeal alcohol in 36 and then fight against ganja in 37?
Right. And
Yeah.
World War
They
II
called
started
it-
in 1939.
They called the bad good and the good bad. And war broke out in heaven.
1939.
And you know, it was in 1970 that Richard Nixon put ganja in the same category as heroin. It formed the DEA.
Nixon formed the DEA.
Yeah, man.
He set it up.
Formed the DEA.
He set it up, and in 1970, Nixon took and put ganja and heroin in the same category, as far as the law books are concerned. Because in the law books and before that, it was never ganja was never in the category of heroin. And Nixon did that in 1970.
No, Anslinger did that 37. He put it over the
But when
same
you call
category.
the good bad, you must make the next mistake.
Call it bad good.
You see, though them are trying to dispute it, they don't have no moral to set before the people.
No.
They don't have anything to show. No solution.
Same like this, every people took last year. As I got to work down to these files, teacher and files pass.
All shepherds,
All these files last year and cause them to hair.
You see it?
You see
And
who
turn
feed,
them out of the way.
who feed themselves.
And I feel the sheep.
Yeah, with their phony little law.
They have not broken they have not repaired those that are broken.
No, you can't do that.
Nor have they healed those that were sick.
Don't have a healing balm. No balm for the word.
They put the corruption in, you can't take it out.
And so God did have to come himself.
You see it? Take on his life for the whole
That's
world.
the greatest things happened.
Huh?
Tiger Bay.
So all of them are touch wrong.
That's gonna be like 15
Yeah,
minutes.
just touch.
Remember,
A whole bunch of money.
remember, door, let me transfer them down there.
Nation.
Everyone will have to come up and like that.
So, they got to
So
say that.
that let my boy say, listen, that couldn't solve the problem.
Remember
No.
when they put Danielle in the furnace, they said, "Who is the God that can deliver you out of my hand?"
Oh.
And he had to declare it
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
the
the
God
thing.
of the stone.
Right.
And then they come back in bed, and
We're gonna put that in the next Coptic Times too.
they can't find it.
We're gonna look at Danielle 3 in the next newspaper too.
Living history.
Shadrach,
So
Meshach.
how we most of them get a kingdom that time.
Yeah.
But if you abandon and look at the time, and
No.
as I marvel them, so now,
Yeah.
But through the Parsons,
by the world, be a master
You
for
see
them.
it there?
and the Parsons haven't prepared the people for the end.
Oh, I know, the God's lining up with the other.
The Parsons only prepared them to give him money.
That's it. And it come,
And come.
I don't wanna go home.
and then I sing like it now, but.
Well, all right, we got black man, white man, and Chinaman all smoking the one cup.
Good.
Giving thanks,
Giving
giving thanks to the same God.
Can't stop.
3 races right there.
But it's wasn't come together, and yes, sir.
All nations
You
can
don't want to buy an apple tree, through the doctor.
That means it's long we got done, no?
But them can't dispute it.
They can't dictate.
You can't fight against the truth.
They can't go fight. They can't.
They have to give up.
Everyone, they walk to my father's side too.
Yeah.
Get into their feelings out of that.
The doctrine of the
Many,
universe.
many would have confessed the man, yet they were afraid.
Society.
Persecution. Didn't bear the cross.
And there are many that accept the man's ethics and say that he's a moral teacher and a great moral.
Divine
That's an act of being
Dies divine sonship.
It truly was a sign. His teachers.
man rise, running dog,
You see it?
rise with a passion.
Truly God.
Mine.
And this is come to society, then I look at it.
Right.
They take it like that.
A true come from a black man that beat them.
Right. I don't know why you would say this is true.
And this didn't come from Tuskegee University either.
Correct.
Came out of a man.
This came from a separation of 6,000.
The living source.
So this is the promise of God.
See,
So
too.
that we read the life.
See,
We would live in
Bring
peace.
away from earth to Zion.
Joe,
Desires.
God is not the author of confusion.
God have peace.
That's God gives it.
Brother Gordon.
Hello?
Lover Williams, first name, do you know it?
Yeah.
I think I traced you in a book, I'm not sure.
Huh?
So thought he found a part in the book that referred to Lovell Williams Camp.
Oh.
But he wanted to know what his name was like on his birth certificate. What his name was in the world.
Yeah, man. But I love
What now?
I'm named in the world.
that was his name in the world, brother.
Right, that's the only name. That's the only name anybody
Love
knows.
over there.
William Williams. But he was meaning like whether it's Keith Williams or
I love over there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, Lovell Williams.
Yeah, it's Williams, no?
Yeah.
Oh, what name did you look up?
Williams Shrill.
William Trill?
Oh, no. Williams is the last name.
But in every dispensation, you must find a difference. Coming down the years. 5 to this years now. The name is still different. Within the man. But within the time of Christ. Which is here, it's a different name. Different time I hear about Peter, I hear about John. But this time I hear about Peter.
So the same, I realize that.
You see,
It's all man.
Yes.
I see that tradition coming down from the age, you know, from generation to come right down to 4th generation.
the God man.
You see, so here we are now.
In this land.
You see, but we are the kingdom, you know.
Yeah.
The people is the kingdom.
Yes.
The voice of the people, the voice of God.
That's why we all gather now
You have any split up?
under the name
To seek the
of
Lord's blessing.
Rastafari.
Voice of the people.